Hello YouTube. Well, my next video was gonna be on my Ruger American Predator in 243. Then this is it in the background, and like I mentioned briefly in my first video, it's really love this rifle. I had hopes for it when I first purchased it after reviewing everything I could find on the Ruger American Predator on YouTube, and most of the videos I could find were with the 6.5, like a dude and some guns had a good video on the Ruger American Predator, along with 243 Outdoors and some other channels. I don't remember off the top of my head, but so I went along with it. Right away, I kind of thought about getting into the 6.5, but like I already had dies for the 243, and I like it. For me, it's a nice all-around purpose cartridge. I use 243 for deer, and then mainly coyotes is what I hunt now. Being I haven't been drawn for a deer tag for 3 years now, 4 years, I can't remember. But man, it's a great shooting gun. I did like what you can find online. You can kind of halfways do your own trigger job on it. It's just clipping a spring in the trigger mechanism, and then back in the screw out, and I got that trigger with my trigger pull gauge. I got it down. It's anywhere from 2.5 to 2.25 pounds is what I'm getting consistent. It's, I don't know, I think I need to get a different trigger pull gauge. That's at my, not with me right now, but nice once you get the slack out of it. It's a nice crisp trigger, and then on top of it, I decided to back when I first kind of heard about them, Athlon optics is what I went with for optics. I went just with, I like the 4 to 14 power range. I didn't really want a minimum power of 6, so I ended up going with just the Talos BTR, and I got I can't remember what the reticle is called, but it's their mill. It comes in a mill reticle, Christmas tree style, and I really like that. Tracking wise, it does track pretty good, but being it's kind of a lower end, price wise scope, I don't know as far as longevity wise if the turrets would hold up on it. But as far in coyote hunting, I don't have time to dink around with the turrets, being they're moving so much, and most of my shots I don't really have the dial for. Even shooting out, I shoot a lot at 500 yards with it. When I get done with a rifle of like this, or my 300, or some other rifles I've done load work up for, I like, after I get my 100-yard done, I like to stretch it out to 200, and then sometimes I set up at 3, but then usually I just go right for the 500 just to see how my load prints and whatnot. But yeah, the scopes, like I was saying, it's 4 to 14, and then I'm also running Vortex rings. I don't exactly remember what they're. I think I got them from Midway. They were like on sale for like $60. I think they're normally priced like 80 or whatever rings those are. But hopefully someday I can eventually take advantage of the threaded barrel and run a can on it too. And then the bipod, I'm just running I think it's a Blackhawk 9 to 13. Thought about going with the 4 to 6, but then kind of thought about when I'm laying prone on stands coyote hunting, it's kind of nice to have the 9 to 13 range to get up over grass and that kind of sort of stuff. But and then I got just a Kydex cheek riser on it to help me get up to the scope. But and then this one, as you can see, I just did a rattle can job. It's like I don't really need that Duracoat or the Cerakote stuff, and it's just a polymer stock, and it's my hunting tool anyway, so if it gets scratched up, it not a big deal. So that's why I went with the rattle can, just something to color it, but and just to get by, just because the green, I just wanted something with a tannish kind of color on it, just to help blend in during early and late season coyotes. But And then usually I'll wrap it with some just white tape, just usually the scope, because my arms are usually covering up the rest of the rifle to kind of help it hide. But my load I'm currently shooting in it right now is Berger 105 Target hybrids, and it was kind of weird when I just started shooting them just on a whim. For one, to find a replacement for my 105 AMAXs, which I still have some left, but I was in a pinch. I just wanted to see if I had some time off so I could do some load work up, and I started low, and I think I went up in 0.3 grain increments starting from, I think, 39 and a half, I think is where I started, and I worked all the way up until, which is way over max. I don't recommend using this load I'm shooting, but I'm using reloader 17, and I ended up at 42.7 grains, and I got an overall length of 2.853, which it just barely squeezes in my magazine for this rifle. But it was weird because until I wasn't getting any groups whatsoever until I hit 42.5, and then I'd get 3 to 4 to group with that charge weight, and then I'd still have a flyer that was like way off. And upon load development, usually when I do load development, I'm shooting on a fairly, I don't know if you want to call it a seasoned bore. This gun really likes to be shot dirty. Like if I do a full clean on it, it takes me probably 40 to 50 rounds before it really starts shooting good again. And a lot of guys shoot 5, 3, 5, 10 rounds and their gun's shooting again, but this one, it's just kind of a different character. But yeah, until I hit that 42 and a half, that's when it started shooting halfways decent. And then when I hit, and then from there, being I knew I was way over max, I went to 0.2 grain or 0.1 grain increments. I went to 42.6. Granted, that 0.1, it probably doesn't make that much of a difference anyways, but I had 3 different strings of 5, and going from 42.5 to 42.7, and in between there. So I had 15 rounds of 42.7, 15 rounds of 42.6, and 15 rounds of 42.5, just to make sure it wasn't me shooting crappy. But once I hit 42.5, or 42.7, sorry, this is what I ended up with. And then just to make sure, I shot that again a different day. I had 5 rounds of this because I wasn't expecting it. I thought 42.6 would work, so I had to go back, load up more rounds. And I loaded up just 4 more because I was running short on bullets, and this was my second. Well, this is just a sighter, but this was a 4-round group up here. I didn't get a measurement on that, but it was good enough. That shot, like most guys say, that was me. And then after this round, I loaded up. I usually have dirt for coyote hunting. I always try to have at least 40 rounds on hand, just for in between I go hunting and whatever, if I want to plink around and shoot at steel. And then I went out and I shot this. This was a 3-round group, and that's what I got. Again, I didn't measure that, but that first group I showed you, center to center, I measured 2.67 MOA on this, and outside, I didn't measure that, but basically from this center to center to whatever I can make out of a hole over here, that's what I ended up with. And this is a 1-inch dot here. But and of all my loads that I've attempted to work up for this gun, this is by far the best group I've ever gotten. I've gotten quite a few 1/2-inch groups with the 105 AMAXs, and then just to try them, there was a sale going on with some of the Nosler Varmageddons. I ended up going with the 70 grainers just for a cheap plinking round in case I ever wanted to go prairie dog hunting or something like that. And I got quite a few half-inch groups with that cheap bullet, and works really good on small game. I haven't got to shoot any prairie dogs with it yet, but that 70 grain Varmageddon, if you want just a cheap plinking bullet in 6 mil, that's quite the bullet to go with. And I have two different bullets in 22 cal also that are Nosler Varmageddons. I had yeah, they're all flat base, but I had the 55 grain hollow point and then also the 55 grain tipped, and both those shot really good out of my AR. But going back to the 243, this load of 42.7 with reloader 17 is what I ended up going with. But I just recently went out to the range. We had when I first did my load development, that's going to be stupid of me to say, but it was -10 that day at the range when I was doing my load development, and I needed something, and I wanted to try these bullets out on coyotes before the season ended. So I went out, did some load development, and got that group. And then I think it was two days later I ended up going out, and I ended up getting a couple dogs with this round. And this target hybrid worked extremely well. It's kind of the same as the AMAX did on coyotes as far as pelt damage. Minimal, I mean, there's definitely an exit, and but real manageable. And all the coyotes that I've shot, I think I got 7 or 8 by the end of the season that I shot with these 105 Bergers, and none of them I got docked as far as docked on pay or whatever. But yeah, and then I mean, awesome bullet. I just wish they were cheaper, but I think I'm gonna try some of the 108 ELDs, means I got these to stabilize on their Berger's box. It says 1 to 7 to stabilize, but I got them to stabilize in a 1 to 9 twist. So I'm thinking about, just for the heck of it, trying 108 ELDs matches, see if I can get them to stabilize, just for more of a summertime kind of dinking around bullet, shooting at steel and whatever. And then that's another thing too, like I was saying, I went out to the range just recently and it was 40-degree weather, and at -10 and around, well, -10 to 0 degrees, I had these 105 Bergers out of this 22-inch 243 with 42.7 grains of reloader 17. I was chronoing, I think my average was 29.93, and when I just recently shot these at, I think it was 38 degrees at the range, I was chronoing, I got an average of 3,052, I think, and my standard deviation didn't change at all. It was, I think, when I first did the load development, I think my standard deviation was 5 or 6, and then it was still at 5, 6, 7. I didn't do all the math that required to figure that out, which would be easy to do, but standard deviation was still good. But I was starting to show signs of pressure, nothing bad, no ejector marks or anything like that, but primers were getting a little bit flatter than what I'd like. And when it was cold, that -10 to 0 degrees out, I had just normal looking primers, no pressure signs whatsoever. And I'm out of Hornady's book with their 105 bullets, I think 1.2 grains over max. But being as I'm seating these out as far as I am, that's probably where I'm getting away with not having pressure show up, except for now that it's warmer out. And that's another reason I really don't want to shoot them anymore, is they shoot really good in the winter. So I'm going to probably go back to my AMAXs now that the weather's starting to warm up, and just kind of leave these alone until it cools down to that. I'd probably be comfortable shooting them 30 degrees above and below. And as far as the brass goes, I know a lot of guys knock on it, but I just use plain Jane Winchester brass, and I'm using Winchester large rifle primers. And out of this 243, with this, well, any of my loads, it's been real easy. This is probably the easiest rifle I've, except for trying to figure out this Berger bullet right away. It's been the easiest gun to make loads up for. It's just not picky. Like, I've shot Nosler 55s, which I just got done shooting those. I'll show you those. This is kind of impressive, or not impressive, but nice. It was kind of rewarding to see, because these were just loads that didn't shoot, and I had leftover rounds. I had 4 rounds in each string left over. I was trying to work up a load for I have a Browning BLR in 243, and I love the gun. It's just extremely picky to shoot. Like, it is very picky. And but anyways, these were loaded up with Reloader 15, and I got mixed up when I was swapping rounds out of my BLR box into my 243 range, or the Ruger range box, and I have this narrowed down. I'm either at 45 grains of Reloader 15 or 44.8, but again, this is probably around that 1/4 inch to 0.3 inches center to center. And that was just 100 yards, but that was with the Nosler ballistic tips. And then I had, these were loaded fairly hot, but then I had these were 44.5. Or this one here, 44.5. I had a flyer. These are all 4-round groups, and then at 45.5 I had this, which is, I still 3/4 of an inch. I didn't bother measuring it, but yeah. So this gun's a shooter. It's pretty. It kind of eats whatever you throw in it, as long as you stay away from pressure. And that's another thing too, is when I first did my load development up with my 105 AMAXs, I was fairly conservative. I stayed well below showing any pressure signs, just because I know 243s can be prone to be barrel eaters. And as of right now, I finally got a somewhat halfway accurate count to how many rounds I got down this barrel, but I'm in between that 1,200 round mark to the 1,500 round mark, which is still a big window. But I know some guys that I've talked to, they say their barrels were shot out after 1,000 rounds, but I've tried to stay pretty conservative. But now that Ruger comes out with these Predators with an AI Accuracy International pattern style mag, once this barrel's burnt out, I'll keep it. I think I can send it in and have Ruger re-barrel it, just slap a new barrel on it, but I'm not sure. But in the process of waiting for that, I'm definitely going to get one of them AI pattern style Predators, just because these, like you see all over YouTube, these mags, I'm on my 3rd mag now with it. Granted, it's partially my fault, because I usually have at least 2 rounds in it at all times, just so it's ready to go for when I'm traveling back and forth to my parents' or my in-laws' place, just in case I see a coyote off the road, can have rounds available to send at them while they're off, off the road or whatever, if we ever come across a road dog. But yeah, I mean, the mags work, but they wear out fast, and that's my only gripe about this Ruger American Predator. But anyways, yeah, so that's my Ruger American Predator. It's probably not the best quality video you guys have ever seen here on YouTube, but just thought I'd share what I've done with it. And kind of, again, there's, a lot of guys ask if you can stabilize 105s in a 1-9 twist, or like these Bergers in a 1-9 twist, and I got mine to stabilize. I don't know about other people. Every gun's its own person, or has own personality, so some guns work and some guns don't. But yeah, so